Hey everybody, my name is Dylan Patey, and this is my 1994 Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4. Alright everybody, we're going to give the inside of the VR4 some love today. I have got a short shifter from 3SX. So the stock shifter is really, there's no transmission, so I can do that. So that's besides the point. But typically, this thing has a really long throw. It feels just like this. They are really long throws. So I have something to fix that, shift faster and more crisp and a whole lot less slop. So let's get this shift knob off and the boot off, and we'll see what we're looking at for this. All right, so here's kind of what we're looking at in here. So we've got a bolt that goes through right there. And then we've got a cotter pin down there, replaced with that. And it looks like it should be just a simple drop in, forget it ever happened kind of thing.
Just a simple drop in, forget it ever happened.
I wish I could film more for you guys, but can't really find a good angle. So I'll just have to bring you back when I have an update for you. Okay, got it out. Down there is disgusting, so I'm gonna vacuum it. And then honestly, it's just throw that one back in. This is a bolt and a cotter pin, and that's it. So, all right, in my endeavors, I found on the bottom, that you need this piece. So that needs to be transferred over from the stock one. All right, so I had to modify the shifter a little bit. So it was welded a little too close to the edge, so that ball joint thing was binding inside the linkage. So I just took it to a grinder, grinded it down, made it round, and now it clears just fine. So I'm going to go ahead, paint over this so it doesn't rust, and we will continue on. All right, it's in. That clearance worked. So now we have got buttery smooth shifting. No binding, nothing. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the boot back on, and then the shift knob. All right, so I just want to give a shout out to this company right here. I don't know how to say it. Racing, I think. Anywho, they make really cool shift knobs. Look at it. And so this is a weighted shift knob. It is heavy, and it's tall. It's really pretty. And then their shift knobs, they come with these adapters, and they have that little set screw so that when you screw down your shift knob, you can set it so that when it's tight, it's at whatever angle you want it to be. So if you want a little angled that way, or if you just want it straight, you just adjust that little set screw, and that changes how far down. That lets you spin this shift knob, and I think it's just really cool. Oh, and then side note, yes, I did blue Loctite that. I definitely don't want that coming loose. All right, here we are. It's in. And I don't know if you guys can really tell, but yeah, that throw is significantly less. So I guess now we'll just hope that it cleans up the rest of the shifting. We'll just see how it feels when the rest of the car's put back together. Hey everybody. So today we're finally going to work on the all-wheel steering delete. First off, I just want to note under there are the plugs that you need to plug up for the rear steering lines. Do those before you install a sway bar. I had to take mine off and then fight with it to get back on to plug those up. So yeah, plug those. Then what we need to do is drop the rear subframe. And to do that, we need to disconnect the e-brake cables right in there. So and to do that, there are just four Phillips screws. It was really easy. Then you twist that and just pull those out. So that wasn't too bad. Now we need to disconnect the e-brake cable lines that go back here. We need to disconnect the brake lines, the shocks, and a handful of other stuff. I'm kind of figuring it out as we go. So yeah, it'll be a slow process and quite an involved one. So as for the power steering fluid reservoir, you have two options. You can get the non-all-wheel steering reservoir, or like a front wheel drive one, or you can do what I'm going to do and you just loop this with that one. You loop these two together and then they just kind of sit there and look pretty. Yeah, because we don't use them anymore. That, or you can cap it, pick your poison. Yeah. All right, so we have to drop the drive shaft. So you need a 12 millimeter and a 14 millimeter. I just used 2 wrenches and I let these soak in some PB Blaster overnight, so they came off pretty easily. Then we need to take off the 2 carrier bearings so that we can then reach these 2 nuts that feed up into there. See those cables? Those are your e-brake cables, and we're just gonna go ahead and pull those out of their slots so that we can drop the subframe safely without breaking anything. Okay, we're just kind of jumping around. So this is the driver's side. Went ahead and just took off the cover here. And then if you look right there, there's a bracket that just straps the pipes to the frame of the car. So got to take that off. It's a 12 millimeter nut, and then the bracket just comes right off. Now I think I'm just gonna go ahead and cut these right here, because trying to pull them through is going to be a nightmare, like up and through the subframe and everything. So gonna be a nightmare. So just cut it and deal with that later. I'm gonna go over to the struts, the rear struts, and those are 17 millimeter bolts. Remove those. All right, so these are the lines that bend through the front subframe and up and into the engine bay. I seriously just hacked and slashed my way until they came out. You absolutely cannot just pull them out. I mean, I was bending, twisting, trying to break, cutting, slicing, just anything I could do. But I got it out. I'm gonna clean up, go home for the night. It's late. See you guys tomorrow. All right, everybody. So the main brake line you need to disconnect is that one. That one will separate the rest of the lines from the body. Then you go ahead, take off that bolt, and then I just took a rubber mallet and tapped that off. You might have to take a pry bar, depending on how stuck yours is. All my bolts have been soaking in WD-40 for the past while, so they came off pretty easily. I forgot to tell you guys to disconnect are the ABS lines. I went ahead and just cut them because I don't have ABS anymore. So yeah, make sure you disconnect those up there. Now you need to loosen up 6 bolts, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you can stick a jack under your diff and lower. I'm gonna go over and grab a second set of hands just in case. All right, everybody, we're out. Looks like a giant spider, but we're out. One thing to note, I did finish taking off the drive shaft, just the one more carrier bearing, just to get it completely out of the way so I could drag it out sideways. I don't have the car jacked up high enough to pull it out through the rear, so these dollies allowed me to go short enough though, luckily, so dragging it out sideways was no problem. So now, as for the all-wheel steering, every single one of these lines you see is coming off. Then the steering rack is coming off, the pump is coming off, just all that coming off. Just junk weight. Yeah, so now I'm just gonna douse this thing in WD-40 and start breaking bolts loose. Okay, here we are. All-wheel steering is completely off. In order to get the pump off, it's just one bolt, and then you just smack it around with a hammer and a pry bar. Eventually it'll jiggle loose. So now what we gotta do, the kit came with a plug. So we got to put gray RTV gasket maker and plug up that hole. All right, everybody. So what I've done here is I've got my plug, gray gasket maker, I've got a rubber mallet, and then I just cut up a 2x4. So I need to spread sealant all over here. And then when I go to tap it down, I'll use the black 2x4 to make sure that I don't push the cap down too far. It is nice and square and flush. Okay, so go ahead, got that pounded down, made sure to not go too far. In fact, I couldn't really get it any farther than that. So I hope that does, and then I did go ahead and obviously stick an extra bead of sealant around the outside just to try to really help make sure that doesn't leak, because man, would that be bad. All right, so while that dries, we're gonna go ahead and work on getting the sway bar out because I haven't upgraded one. All right, everybody, so here we are. I've got my new sway bar just kind of resting in there. I've started to scrub with a wire brush, start exposing all the rust that I need to take care of. I'm tired though, and I don't really feel like doing it. And it is now tomorrow me's problem. So I went ahead, just cleaned up. I took some of the weight off of the rotors. Didn't feel comfortable just letting it sag, so. All right, everybody. Here we are. Sanded down the rear subframe, painted it with some rust stopper and protectant. Now it's ready to go back in. I'm gonna go ahead and take the calipers off so I can paint those. And then I've got two of my friends on their way here so they can help me put this back up into the car. I'm sorry, everybody. Just want to start by saying because I dropped the ball. I totally forgot to film putting the rear subframe back in, as well as something else we were working on. I got a new steering rack because my old one had torn boots. I'll throw up a little clip. It was bad. But luckily the guys over at 3SX were wanting a used VR4 front steering rack. So I was able to trade them mine for a rebuilt front wheel drive steering rack, and then plus some cash on top, obviously. So the front wheel drive steering rack bolts up exactly how the VR4 one does. So I went ahead and went with that because the front wheel drive steering rack doesn't have the two ports for the all-wheel steering, and since I deleted that, I don't need that, so I don't need those ports, I don't need the plugs, and that's one less leaking point. So I just went ahead and went with that, and it's new, it's nice, we're good. We're working on bolting the drive shaft back in right now, but I need to order some new bushings as we found out, otherwise it will fall. But yeah, so I went ahead, we removed the dust shield around the calipers because those were ugly. We cleaned them up, put them back on, everything's buttoning up. I should be starting on the motor build soon, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, everybody.